Emma's hands trembled, gripping the delicate gold ring between her fingers. The soft light filtering through the stained glass windows danced across the polished wooden floor of the church. She was supposed to be the happiest woman in the world, standing there in her ivory dress, ready to say yes to Michael, the man who had patiently waited for this moment. But something inside her was pulling in a different direction. Her breath hitched, and suddenly, the ring slipped from her grasp. It tumbled through the air, spinning slowly as if reluctant to leave her hand. Every eye in the room followed its path. The quiet murmur of the congregation stilled to a hush. The ring rolled across the aisle, its golden surface catching the light, until it came to a gentle stop right at the feet of Daniel. Daniel, the man she had loved deeply, the man she had thought she lost forever. He was standing at the back of the church, his eyes locked on the ring. A silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the distant sound of a clock ticking, as if time itself had paused to witness this moment. Emma's heart thundered in her chest. This was no accident. She remembered the first time she met Daniel. It was a brisk autumn afternoon, and their hands had brushed as they reached for the same book in the small-town library. The world seemed to tilt on its axis after that, as if everything was somehow brighter, warmer. Their love grew slowly, naturally, filled with laughter, late-night talks, and shared dreams that stretched far into the future. But life, as it often does, introduced complications. Daniel's job offered an unexpected opportunity across the country. Emma stayed behind to care for her aging mother. The distance stretched between them like an invisible wall. Phone calls grew less frequent. Messages went unanswered. The promises they made to each other dissolved into silence. Emma told herself she was strong, that she was doing the right thing, but each night she lay awake wondering if love was truly enough to bridge the miles. Then Michael came into her life. He was the kind of man who brought calm to the storm, quiet, dependable, and kind. Not the fire and passion Daniel had ignited, but a steady flame that promised warmth and security. Her family liked Michael. Her friends admired him. He seemed like the safe choice, the one who could give her the stability she longed for. Yet, as Michael slipped the ring onto her finger during their quiet proposal, Emma felt an ache, a whisper from her heart that this was not her story's end. Now, as the ring lay at Daniel's feet, Emma's mind raced. How had he come back? Why now? She glanced at Michael, who was still kneeling, hopeful and patient. She wanted to be the woman everyone expected her to be. She wanted to say yes and begin a new chapter. But the truth pressed heavy on her chest. Her heart was still tethered to the past. Daniel knelt down slowly and picked up the ring, his eyes never leaving Emma's. The warmth in his gaze was undeniable, filled with years of love, regret, and longing. The crowd whispered, unsure of what to make of this unexpected turn. Emma felt a wave of emotions crash over her: confusion, fear, hope. The path she thought was clear suddenly twisted into something unknown. She had spent so long trying to forget Daniel, to convince herself that the future with Michael was the right choice. But standing there now, with that simple golden ring in Daniel's hand, she realized some loves don't fade away. They linger in the quiet moments, in the space between heartbeats. The question was no longer about who she should marry, but about who she truly was. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away, determined to face whatever came next. She took a steadying breath, feeling the weight of every decision that had led her here. The church felt smaller, more intimate, as if it held its breath with her. The ring slipped from Daniel's fingers and rolled gently back toward her, as if inviting her to claim what she had lost. And in that suspended moment, Emma knew her life was about to change forever. 2 years before the wedding day, the air was thick with unspoken words and growing distance. Emma sat in the dimly lit living room of their small apartment, the soft hum of the heater filling the silence between her and Daniel. He was packing his bags for a job across the country, the kind of opportunity that promised a better future, but demanded sacrifice. Their hands brushed briefly as they exchanged a fragile smile, both unwilling to say the goodbye they feared would never be temporary. Daniel's eyes held hope and sorrow at once, while Emma's heart ached with the weight of what they were about to lose. They promised each other they'd make it work: calls, visits, letters. All of it would keep them connected. But promises are easy to make and harder to keep. At first, the distance felt manageable. Daniel called every night, his voice a lifeline through the static of long-distance love. They shared stories, laughter, dreams. But slowly, the calls became shorter, less frequent. Life crowded in on both of them, Emma with her mother's declining health, Daniel with the pressures of a new job, new responsibilities, and new people. Emma found herself sitting by the window, staring out at the familiar neighborhood she loved, while Daniel was living in a city that felt both exciting and isolating. The miles stretched wider, not just geographically, but emotionally. Text messages went unanswered for hours, days. Calls went straight to voicemail. Each silence carved a deeper space between them. There were nights Emma would lie awake, the weight of loneliness pressing down on her chest. She'd reach for her phone, hesitate, then put it back down, afraid of the disappointment waiting on the other end. She told herself she was strong, that she was doing the right thing by staying close to her family. But the truth was, she missed Daniel in ways words couldn't capture. One afternoon, after a week without contact, Emma tried calling Daniel again. The ringing stretched on and on before finally cutting off. Her chest tightened. She sank into the worn armchair, clutching a faded photo of the two of them smiling on a sunny day in the park. The memory was bittersweet, reminders of what once was and what might never be again. Friends and family began to notice her quiet sadness. They encouraged her to move on, to open her heart to someone who could be there fully, without the miles between. That's when Michael entered her life, a steady presence, a calm harbor after the storm. He listened, cared, and gave her moments of peace she hadn't known she needed. Emma appreciated Michael's kindness, his unwavering support, but the spark, the fierce, unpredictable fire, was missing. She tried to convince herself that love could be quiet and safe, that she deserved happiness, even if it looked different from the passionate days with Daniel. Still, at night, when the house was silent, her mind drifted back to Daniel's laugh, the way his hand fit perfectly in hers. Daniel, too, was grappling with the emptiness left behind. The city's bright lights couldn't fill the void Emma's absence created. He found himself wandering streets they had once dreamed of exploring together. His heart was tethered to the past, and every message he didn't send was a silent apology. Months turned into years, and the fragile thread between them stretched thinner. Emma tried to bury the memories, the love that felt both like a blessing and a burden. She told herself that what they had was a beautiful chapter, now closed. She focused on caring for her mother, building routines, and slowly, almost without realizing it, creating a new life. But some loves don't disappear quietly. They linger in the spaces between heartbeats, in the sudden pang of a familiar song, or the glimpse of a face in a crowded street. Emma had tried to move forward, but the past had not let go of her. One day, as Emma was folding laundry, her phone buzzed with a message from Daniel. Just 2 words, "I'm back." Her fingers trembled as she stared at the screen. The past had come knocking unexpectedly, threatening to unravel the carefully woven fabric of her new life. Emma sat still, the weight of that message heavier than any she had received before. What did it mean? Was it an opening for hope, or a reminder of a love that was too complicated to reclaim. Her heart whispered that some stories aren't finished. They just pause, waiting for the right moment to be told again. Michael was nothing like Daniel. He was steady, reliable, like the calm after a storm. Emma often thought of him as the safe harbor she needed after years of uncertainty. He wasn't flashy or spontaneous, but he was kind in ways that mattered. His smile didn't light up a room the way Daniel's once had, but it offered comfort, a quiet warmth she hadn't realized she was craving. Their relationship unfolded in easy rhythms. Morning coffee shared in soft silence. Evening walks along tree-lined streets. Michael's presence was a constant, steadying force in Emma's unpredictable life. Her friends admired him. Her family approved. He was everything she was told a good partner should be. Yet, the fire Emma once felt with Daniel had dimmed to a faint flicker, buried beneath layers of responsibility and doubt. She told herself that this was enough. Stability was what she needed. After years of heartbreak and distance, wasn't that what mattered most? A man who would be there through thick and thin, who wouldn't vanish with the changing tides. Emma buried herself in this belief, convincing herself that passion was a luxury she could no longer afford. She focused on Michael's kindness, his gentle support as she cared for her aging mother. The world around her expected her to move on, to find peace in the familiar. And so she did. But some nights, when the world quieted down and shadows stretched long across her bedroom walls, Emma's mind drifted back. Back to laughter shared in the early morning light. Back to the way Daniel's hand fit perfectly in hers, as if made for that very purpose. Those memories weren't loud or demanding, but they were persistent, like a soft melody playing just out of reach. One evening, Michael cooked dinner, a simple meal of roasted vegetables and chicken. The smell filled the apartment, wrapping around Emma like a warm embrace. He smiled as she took a bite, hopeful and content. Emma returned the smile, but inside, she felt a tug she couldn't explain. The kind of tug that whispers there's more to life than comfort. She wanted to believe that love could be quiet and steady, but the truth was, she missed the thrill of uncertainty, the rush of possibility. Michael's love was a bomb, but Daniel's was a spark she hadn't yet extinguished. Emma's heart wavered between two worlds, one rooted in reality, the other in memory. She told herself she was doing the right thing. She was choosing a path that made sense. But deep down, a quiet part of her yearned for the chance to feel alive again, to take a risk on something uncertain but real. Her friends noticed the change in her. "You deserve happiness," they said. "Don't settle for less." But how could she explain the complexity of her feelings? How could she tell them that her heart was still caught in a place between past and present? On a chilly autumn afternoon, Emma found herself walking alone through the park where she and Daniel had spent so many afternoons dreaming of the future. The leaves crunched beneath her feet, and the crisp air filled her lungs. She closed her eyes and let the memories wash over her. The promises whispered beneath the old oak tree, the plans they had made. She knew the future was uncertain. She knew that the ring on her finger represented a life she had chosen to build. But the past was not so easily left behind. It lingered in every quiet moment, every breath she took. Emma looked down at Michael's hand holding hers. She wanted to be strong, to honor the life they were creating together. But the pull of what once was relentless. It was a silent question echoing in her heart. Could she live with comfort and still find passion? Could she be content without the fire? She didn't have the answers yet. All she knew was that her heart was not ready to close the door on the story that had begun so long ago. And so she kept walking forward, caught between two loves, one steady, one wild, searching for a path that would lead her home. The day Michael proposed should have been one Emma remembered with joy. Instead, it was a moment she wished she could erase. The afternoon sun filtered through the curtains of their small apartment, casting warm patterns across the worn carpet. Michael's hands trembled slightly as he reached into his pocket, pulling out a simple gold ring that caught the light in the softest way. His eyes searched Emma's face, filled with hope and vulnerability. "Emma," he began, voice steady but full of emotion, "will you marry me?" She looked down at the ring, then back at Michael's hopeful face. Around them, time seemed to hold its breath. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to embrace the promise of a future together, to build something steady and lasting. But a weight pressed on her chest, heavy and unyielding. Her heart wasn't ready. It was still tangled in the past, caught in memories of Daniel. Emma smiled politely, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Michael," she whispered, "this means so much to me." Her voice faltered as the words hung in the air. The ring glinted softly, a symbol of hope and commitment, but for Emma, it felt like a reminder of what she wasn't sure she could give. Michael took her hand gently, his warmth a stark contrast to the chill creeping in her thoughts. He spoke of the life they could share, quiet evenings, shared breakfasts, the comfort of companionship. He promised to be patient, to wait for her if she needed time. But Emma's mind wandered. She remembered Daniel's laughter, the way he used to hold her close during storms, the dreams they painted together like fragile watercolors. That life felt distant, like a story from someone else's book. Yet the emotions still lingered, a quiet ache she couldn't ignore. As Michael slipped the ring onto her finger, a shiver ran through Emma. It was a delicate circle of gold, promising forever, but her heart whispered uncertainty. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks, hoping that this choice would quiet the turmoil inside. Later, alone in her room, Emma sat by the window, tracing the outline of the ring on her finger. The night sky stretched endlessly before her, filled with stars that seemed to mock her confusion. She wondered if love was supposed to feel this way, so complicated, so bittersweet. She remembered the early days with Daniel, the late-night talks, the stolen kisses, the feeling of being truly known. That love was fiery and fierce, but it had faded with distance and silence. Michael's love was steady and reliable, but it lacked the spark that made her heart race. Emma's thoughts were interrupted by the soft ring of her phone. It was a message from Daniel. For simple words, "Can we talk soon?" Her breath caught. The past was reaching out again, blurring the lines she had tried so hard to draw. She felt torn between two worlds, one filled with promise and security, the other with passion and unfinished stories. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stared at the screen, the ring on her finger catching the light like a beacon. The choice before her was not just about a man or a ring. It was about who she wanted to be, what kind of love she was ready to embrace. Michael's proposal had opened a door, but Emma wasn't sure if she was ready to walk through it. The quiet doubt in her heart grew louder, pushing her toward a reckoning she had long avoided. She wiped away a tear, knowing that the coming days would demand honesty and courage. For now, the ring was a symbol of both hope and hesitation, a reminder that love is never simple, and sometimes the hardest promises to keep are the ones we make to ourselves. Emma's heart pounded as she stepped into the quiet cafe, where she had agreed to meet Daniel. The years seemed to melt away the moment she saw him sitting by the window, his gaze distant but warm. He stood up slowly, a nervous smile flickering across his face, as if he wasn't sure this moment was real. "Emma," he said softly, his voice trembling with emotion, "thank you for meeting me." She nodded, words caught in her throat. The years of silence, the missed calls, the unanswered messages, they all weighed heavily between them. Yet, here they were, two souls once entwined, now standing on the edge of something unknown. Daniel reached out, his fingers brushing hers gently. The touch sent a shiver down Emma's spine, a reminder of everything they had lost and everything that still lingered beneath the surface. "I never stopped thinking about you," Daniel confessed, his eyes searching hers for a sign of forgiveness or understanding. "I was a coward. I let distance take what we had, and I'm sorry. More than I can say." Emma's throat tightened. The pain of those long years apart was still raw, but hearing his words stirred something deep inside her. She wanted to believe in second chances, but fear held her back. The fear of heartbreak, of opening old wounds. "I wanted to believe we could fix things," she admitted quietly. "But I've built a life without you. It's not easy to undo all that." Daniel nodded, the weight of regret clear in his expression. "I know. I'm not asking to erase the past. I just want a chance to make things right." They sat in silence for a moment, the world around them fading into the background. Emma thought about Michael, his kindness, his steady presence. She thought about the ring he had given her, the promise they had made. But then she looked at Daniel again, seeing the man who had once held her heart so completely, who still held it now, fragile and aching. "I don't know what comes next," Emma whispered, "but I know I can't keep pretending that what we had is gone." Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Emma's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a ring, not the simple gold band Michael had offered, but a delicate ring, worn from years of waiting and hope. "Will you give us one more chance?" Daniel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not to erase the past, but to build something new." Tears welled in Emma's eyes as she looked down at the ring. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of forgiveness, of courage, and the possibility of a future rewritten. She reached out slowly and took his hand, feeling the warmth and certainty she had missed. For the first time in years, hope stirred in her heart. "Yes," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Let's try." Outside the cafe, the sky began to clear, the sunlight breaking through the clouds as if nature itself was celebrating this fragile new beginning. Emma knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, that doubts and fears would still come. But in that moment, surrounded by the quiet hum of life, she felt a peace she hadn't known in a long time. Love, she realized, was not about perfection or certainty. It was about the willingness to try again, to embrace the unknown, and to hold onto hope when everything else seemed uncertain. As they walked out of the cafe together, hand in hand, Emma felt the weight of the past lifting, replaced by the promise of a future where love, complex, messy, and beautiful, could finally find its way home. The days that followed their meeting in the cafe felt surreal to Emma. Like waking from a long dream she wasn't sure she wanted to leave behind. Daniel stayed close, not rushing, respecting the fragile hope that was growing between them. Each moment together was a step into the unknown, a place where past wounds met the possibility of healing. Emma found herself laughing again, a sound she hadn't realized she'd missed so deeply. Daniel's presence was like a familiar song, soothing, but filled with new verses waiting to be sung. They talked about everything, the years apart, the regrets, the hopes they still carried in their hearts. Daniel never asked for perfection or to erase the past. He only wanted a chance to walk beside her once more. But life was never that simple. Emma knew Michael would notice the change, the way her thoughts drifted elsewhere. The weight of guilt settled heavy on her shoulders. Michael had been kind and patient, offering her a future she had almost accepted as her own. Yet every time she looked at the ring on her finger, it felt like a symbol of a life she wasn't sure she wanted. One afternoon, Daniel suggested a walk through the park where they had shared so many memories. The trees stood tall, their branches swaying gently in the breeze, leaves crunching beneath their feet. The air was crisp and filled with the scent of earth and wood. It was the perfect place to talk, to remember, and perhaps to decide what came next. As they walked side by side, Daniel stopped and took Emma's hand. "I don't want to pressure you," he said softly, "but I need to know where you are. With me, with Michael, with yourself." Emma's heart tightened. She had been asking herself the same question for months, and still, the answer wasn't clear. She squeezed his hand gently and said, "I'm confused. I want to be honest, with you, with Michael, with myself. But I don't know what that means yet." Daniel nodded, understanding the honesty it took to say those words. "Whatever you decide, I'll respect it. But know this, I'm here and I'm not giving up." That night, Emma sat by her window, the ring heavy on her finger. The city lights twinkled below, distant and indifferent to the turmoil inside her. She thought of Michael, waiting patiently, hoping she'd say yes to a future with him. She thought of Daniel, who had returned not with demands, but with a quiet promise to try again. The truth was, Emma's heart was torn between two worlds. One offered safety and steadiness. The other promised passion and possibility. Neither path was easy, and neither was without pain. In the days that followed, Emma reached out to Michael. They talked long into the night, sharing fears and hopes, truths and uncertainties. Michael listened with kindness, his love steady and unwavering. He didn't ask for answers he knew she didn't have yet. Emma realized that love wasn't about rushing decisions or forcing happiness. It was about patience, patience with others, and most importantly, with herself. Slowly, she began to understand that the ring on her finger wasn't just a symbol of a promise made to Michael. It was a reminder of the promise she needed to make to herself, to be brave, to face the truth, and to follow her heart, wherever it might lead. Emma knew the journey ahead would be difficult. She would have to confront fears, make hard choices, and perhaps even risk heartbreak. But for the first time in a long time, she felt a quiet strength rising within her, a strength born not from certainty, but from hope. And as the first light of dawn crept into her room, Emma whispered to the rising sun, "I'm ready to find my way." Emma stood at the edge of the garden, the cool evening breeze tugging gently at her hair. The ring on her finger caught the fading sunlight, glinting softly, a silent reminder of the choices she faced. Her heart was heavy, tangled in the threads of past love and present promises. She had spent weeks unraveling her feelings, walking the tightrope between Daniel's passionate memories and Michael's quiet devotion. Each moment brought clarity and confusion in equal measure. Tonight, she felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her like never before. Her phone buzzed. A message from Michael appeared, *thinking of you. Whatever happens, I'm here. Emma's fingers trembled as she read the words. Michael's patience had been endless, his kindness unwavering. He didn't demand answers, but his love was steadfast, a lighthouse in her storm. She typed a quick reply, "Thank you. I need some time to think." The reply came almost immediately. Take all the time you need. I love you. Those words hit her harder than she expected. Love, it was the very thing that made this choice so difficult. Emma closed her eyes and let the memories wash over her. Daniel's laughter in the rain, the way he held her when the world felt heavy, the promises whispered beneath the stars. That love was wild, unpredictable, and raw. It had shaped her in ways she couldn't forget. But Michael's love was different. It was calm, steady, a promise of safety and shared tomorrows. He had been her anchor during the darkest times, and she knew he meant every word. The room felt silent, the weight of her indecision filling every corner. She wondered if love was meant to be comfortable or if it was supposed to challenge and awaken the soul. As night deepened, Emma's thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. It was Daniel. His eyes held the same mix of hope and uncertainty she felt inside. "I had to see you," he said quietly. "I can't stop thinking about us, about what we lost and what we might still have." Emma looked at him, her heart aching with the memories they shared. "I'm scared, Daniel. Scared of losing what I have, scared of hurting Michael, scared of making the wrong choice." Daniel stepped closer, his voice gentle. "I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want us to be honest with each other and ourselves." They talked through the night, peeling back layers of fear and doubt. They spoke of forgiveness and second chances, of what it meant to love deeply and fully. In the early hours, Emma realized something profound. Love was not about choosing between two people. It was about choosing to be true to herself, to embrace the courage to follow her heart, wherever it might lead. As dawn broke, she looked at Daniel and Michael's names still glowing on her phone screen. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and unknowns. But for the first time, Emma felt ready, not because the answers were clear, but because she was willing to face whatever came next with honesty and courage. She whispered to the morning light, "I will choose love in all its forms." The wedding day arrived with a quiet hum of anticipation. Emma stood in front of the mirror, the soft glow of the morning light illuminating her face. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the delicate lace on her dress. The ring on her finger, a simple gold band, felt heavier than ever, holding the weight of every choice, every moment that had led her here. Outside, guests gathered quietly, their murmurs blending with the gentle rustling of leaves. Michael waited at the altar, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and nervousness. Emma's heart skipped, not just because of the day's significance, but because of everything she had endured to arrive at this moment. As she stepped down the aisle, the world seemed to slow. Her gaze found Michael's, and for a moment, all the doubts and fears melted away. The love between them wasn't perfect. It was real, built on patience, forgiveness, and quiet strength. But then, as if fate demanded it say, the ring slipped from her hand. It tumbled softly across the polished floor, rolling back toward Michael. Time seemed to pause. Michael bent down, his hand steady as he picked up the ring, eyes never leaving Emma's. That simple act carried 1,000 unspoken words. It was a gesture of acceptance, of love that embraced flaws and uncertainty. In that moment, Emma realized love wasn't about having everything figured out. It was about choosing each other, again and again, despite the fears and past scars. As the ceremony began, Emma felt a profound peace settle over her. She was no longer torn between past and present, but grounded in the here and now. Michael's voice was steady as he spoke his vows, and Emma's heart swelled with the courage she had found within herself. Later, as they danced beneath the stars, Emma caught Daniel's eye from across the room. He smiled softly, a silent blessing, a sign that their chapter had ended with grace. Emma squeezed Michael's hand, feeling the warmth and certainty of the life they would build together. The ring on her finger was no longer a symbol of hesitation, but a promise of love that was imperfect, messy, and beautiful. And as the night wrapped around them, Emma knew she had chosen not just a man, but the bravery to love fully, to forgive, and to begin again.